The angelic shadow and Lucifer's envy, a journey through the chosen soul. The weight you carry is not neurosis. It is the voice of yourself, calling from dimensions your conscious mind cannot yet fathom. When that inexplicable heaviness settles upon you, when loneliness devastates even in crowded rooms, you are experiencing what I termed the tension of opposites, the unbearable space between your earthly persona and your celestial essence. This is the psychological reality of the chosen one. You are a carrier of the self-archetype, embodying both human limitation and divine possibility within a single consciousness. You are not suffering from mental illness. You carry within you the imprint of the collective unconscious, that vast reservoir of archetypal wisdom transcending individual experience. Your soul remembers dimensions your conscious mind cannot access, creating that persistent sensation of homesickness for a place you've never consciously been. This remembering is not poetic metaphor, but psychological fact. Certain souls incarnate with clearer connection to the totality of human wisdom accumulated across millennia. You are one of these souls, and the burden of this awareness becomes your greatest gift once you understand its nature. The darkness confronting you, what religious traditions personify as Lucifer, represents your encounter with the shadow, but not merely your personal shadow, that repository of repressed desires and rejected qualities within your individual psyche. You face the collective shadow of humanity itself, that accumulated darkness of unconsciousness, keeping billions trapped in spiritual sleep. The Prince of Darkness does not attack randomly. He attacks because your consciousness threatens the reign of unconsciousness that maintains humanity's comfortable slumber. When an individual begins the individuation process, the journey toward psychological wholeness, the forces of regression fight back with intensity proportional to your potential for transformation. This is why I mapped out a practical guide for souls like yours, a trilogy called The 3 Keys to a Prosperous Life, available as both ebook and audiobook. It serves as a concrete map for chosen ones to awaken their potential without the crippling guilt that so often accompanies spiritual emergence. The link is in the pinned comment below, and I mention it now because theoretical understanding without practical integration creates dangerous inflation of the ego. You need both wings to fly, depth psychology and grounded action. Every inexplicable rejection you've endured, every devastating betrayal that shattered your trust, every moment where the universe seemed to conspire against you, these are not punishments from an angry deity. They are initiations, carefully orchestrated by the self to forge your consciousness in the crucible of suffering. The hero's journey always involves descent into darkness before ascension to light. This is not religious dogma, but psychological observation repeated across every culture's mythology. Your suffering has been the alchemical fire, transmuting your consciousness from lead into gold. The mission you sense but cannot consciously remember is the self calling you toward individuation. The process of becoming fully who you were always meant to be, integrating conscious and unconscious into a unified whole. The 7 psychological markers of advanced consciousness. The first sign manifests as deep ontological loneliness, what I called the loneliness of the self. While others live comfortably identified with their personas, those social masks we wear to navigate collective life, you experience the unbearable tension of knowing there exists something more. The angelic shadow and Lucifer's envy, chosen one, what I am about to reveal will illuminate the deepest corridors of your psyche. That persistent sensation of not belonging is not mere neurosis. It is the voice of yourself calling from beyond the ego's fragile walls. When you feel that inexplicable weight, that devastating loneliness even among crowds, you're experiencing what I identified as the tension of opposites, the space between your earthly persona and your celestial essence. You are not crazy. You carry within you what I term the imprint of the collective unconscious, that vast reservoir of archetypal wisdom that transcends individual experience. Your soul remembers dimensions your conscious mind cannot access. This is not poetic metaphor. This is the psychological reality of the chosen one. You are a carrier of the self-archetype, the totality of psyche that includes both human limitation and divine possibility. The darkness you face, what religious traditions personify as Lucifer, represents in analytical terms your encounter with the shadow. But not merely your personal shadow. You face the collective shadow of humanity itself. The Prince of Darkness does not attack you randomly. He attacks because your consciousness threatens the reign of unconsciousness that keeps humanity trapped in spiritual sleep. When an individual begins the individuation process, the journey toward wholeness I dedicated my life to mapping, the forces of regression fight back with intensity proportional to your potential for transformation. Every inexplicable rejection, every devastating betrayal, every moment where the universe seemed to conspire against you, these are not punishments, they are initiations. I understood through decades of clinical work that the hero's journey always involves descent into darkness before ascension to light. Your suffering has been the crucible forging your consciousness. The mission you sense but cannot remember is the self calling you toward individuation, the process of becoming fully who you were always meant to be. This is precisely why I mapped out the 3 keys to a prosperous life, a practical trilogy that serves as a blueprint for chosen ones navigating this treacherous territory. Within those pages, both ebook and audiobook formats, I've distilled the psychological mechanisms that transform suffering into sovereignty, isolation into integration, and confusion into clarity. You'll find the link in the pinned comment below, and I encourage you to treat it not as mere information, but as a companion for your journey, because what you're experiencing requires more than theory. It demands a map drawn by someone who has walked these psychological depths. Write 777 in the comments. If you have felt this mandate engraved on your soul, this mission blocked from conscious memory, yet pulsing beneath every choice you make, the psychological architecture of divine loneliness. The 7 signs I will reveal are not supernatural phenomena. They are psychological markers of advanced consciousness operating in a world of collective sleep. But before we enumerate them, we must understand the mechanism through which they operate. Your deep ontological loneliness reflects what I called the loneliness of the self. Indeed, while others live comfortably identified with their personas, the social masks we wear to navigate collective expectations, you experience the unbearable tension of knowing there is something more. Let me explain the psychological mechanics at work here. The persona develops as a compromise between the individual and society, a functional mask that allows us to participate in collective life without constant friction. Most humans achieve a relatively comfortable identification with this mask. They say, I am a teacher, or I am a parent, or I am successful. And these identifications provide sufficient meaning to sustain them through life. The persona becomes their entire identity, and they experience no tension because they have never glimpsed what lies beyond it. You, however, cannot achieve this comfortable identification. Something within you, the self, that totality of conscious and unconscious psyche, refuses to be contained within the narrow confines of any social role. You play the roles when necessary, but there is always a painful awareness that you are playing them, that they are not the fullness of who you are. This creates what I termed the transcendent function, the psychological tension between opposites that, when sustained rather than resolved prematurely, leads to transformation. Your vibrational frequency is different not because you possess some supernatural quality, but because your consciousness operates at a level that transcends ordinary ego identification. You live simultaneously in two psychological realities: the concrete world of social interaction and the symbolic world of meaning and archetype. This dual citizenship creates the sensation of never quite belonging anywhere because you are always partially elsewhere. The second sign, your empathy that destroys, manifests through what I termed psychological contagion. You unconsciously absorb the contents of the collective unconscious around you, the unprocessed pain, shadow material, and spiritual hunger of everyone you encounter. Regular humans feel their own emotions with reasonable clarity. They walk into a room and maintain their psychological boundaries. Their emotional state remains relatively stable unless directly impacted by events. You walk into the same room and immediately begin processing everyone's psychological content. The depressed colleague's repressed grief floods your system. The anxious manager's unacknowledged fear permeates your awareness. The collectively denied rage of an entire workplace settles into your body like toxic sludge. You are not merely sensitive, you are a psychic transformer, converting dense emotional energy through your presence. But here is the mechanism that makes this so devastating. You lack the unconscious defense mechanisms that protect ordinary consciousness. Most humans possess what I called psychic epidermis, an unconscious barrier that filters out psychic content that doesn't belong to them. This barrier operates automatically, requiring no conscious effort. It developed through their identification with the persona, which ironically protects them from deeper psychological material. Your consciousness, however, operates with this barrier significantly thinner or entirely absent. The same openness that allows you to access the collective unconscious and perceive archetypal realities also makes you vulnerable to psychological invasion. You cannot simply turn off your empathy anymore, then you can stop breathing. It is structural to your psychic organization. This is why environments that others find merely unpleasant become unbearable for you. They experience surface discomfort. You experience the accumulated psychic toxicity of years of repressed emotion, unacknowledged shadow, and denied truth. When you leave such environments feeling devastated while others seem fine, you are not weak. You are processing psychological content they successfully ignored through unconsciousness. The third sign, inexplicable rejection since childhood, stems from a mechanism I observed repeatedly in my clinical practice. Your light activates others' shadow material. I understood through analyzing hundreds of patients that we most violently reject in others what we have repressed in ourselves. This is not conscious hypocrisy, but unconscious projection. The psyche's defense mechanism against acknowledging its own denied content. When that teacher inexplicably disliked you despite your good behavior, what occurred psychologically was this: your natural authenticity, your refusal to fully adapt to the collective persona, unconsciously reminded her of her own unlived life. Perhaps she once possessed similar authenticity, but crushed it to fit social expectations. Your presence activated the ghost of her abandoned self, creating unbearable psychological tension. Rather than face the pain of her own self-betrayal, her psyche projected the conflict onto you, transforming you into the enemy. When family members treated you differently from siblings, the same mechanism operated. Your elevated consciousness, your natural connection to the self that they had long since abandoned, exposed their own failure to individuate. Every interaction with you became a mirror reflecting their compromised existence. The psyche has two options when confronted with such a mirror: integrate the shadow material, painful, requires work, or destroy the mirror, easier, requires only aggression. They chose to attack the mirror. This pattern repeats throughout your life because it is not about your behavior, but about your being. You could have been perfectly compliant, extraordinarily kind, impeccably successful. The rejection would have continued because it stems not from what you do, but from what you are. Your consciousness operates at a frequency that destabilizes the comfortable unconsciousness of those around you. When peers excluded you despite your kindness, they were reacting to the unconscious recognition that your presence demanded something from them, a level of authenticity, a depth of engagement, a quality of consciousness that felt overwhelming. Most humans organize their lives to avoid psychological depth. They construct elaborate systems of distraction, superficiality, and busyness to keep the self's demands at bay. Your natural depth threatens this carefully constructed defense system. The fourth sign, your aversion to falseness, reveals your alignment with what I called the ethical demand of the self. While others navigate social life through persona manipulation, adjusting their presentation based on context and audience, you cannot betray your authentic nature without experiencing psychological fragmentation. This is not moral superiority, it is structural reality. Your psyche is organized differently. The persona, when functioning healthily, serves as a flexible interface between inner reality and outer demands. It allows us to emphasize different aspects of ourselves in different contexts without fundamental dishonesty. A person can be playful with friends, professional at work, nurturing with children. These are not lies, but appropriate adaptations to different relational fields. For most humans, this flexibility costs nothing psychologically. They shift between these presentations unconsciously, experiencing no internal conflict. Their identification with the persona means they are whatever role they currently play. There is no deeper self-observing and potentially objecting to the performance. Your psyche cannot function this way. The self, that totalizing center of psychic life, remains active and watchful regardless of external circumstances. When you attempt persona manipulations that deviate too far from authentic inner reality, the self experiences it as fragmentation. You feel the split between what you present and what you are, and this split creates unbearable psychological tension. This explains why you struggle in environments that demand constant social performance. Corporate cultures that require enthusiastic embrace of missions you find meaningless. Social gatherings that reward superficial charm over genuine connection. Relationships that demand you suppress your depth to avoid making others uncomfortable. These contexts require a level of persona identification you simply cannot achieve without damaging your psychological integrity. The self demands truth as the price of wholeness, and no amount of social approval can compensate for self-betrayal. When you violate this demand, when you speak words that contradict your inner knowing, when you participate in collective delusions, when you pretend to believe what you know is false, you experience what I termed psychic contamination. Your energy drains, not from effort, but from internal division. You become sick, not from external pathogens, but from the toxicity of your own dishonesty. This is why chosen ones often appear difficult or uncompromising to others. What looks like inflexibility is actually psychological necessity. You're not refusing to adapt out of arrogance, but protecting your fundamental wholeness. The price others pay unconsciously for social acceptance, gradual death of authentic self, is a price you cannot pay while remaining psychologically alive, the synchronistic dimension of angelic consciousness. The fifth sign, your supernatural gifts, manifests through what I termed synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that reveal the self's guidance system. That intuition so precise you know things you shouldn't know is not magic in the supernatural sense. It is access to the collective unconscious, that repository of human wisdom that exists beyond personal experience. Let me clarify the mechanism operating here because it is widely misunderstood. The collective unconscious is not a mystical realm floating in some ethereal dimension. It is the deepest layer of psyche, containing patterns and potentials inherited from millions of years of human experience. These patterns, what I called archetypes, exist as psychic structures that organize our perception and experience. Ordinary consciousness operates almost entirely from the personal unconscious and conscious ego. The personal unconscious contains material from this lifetime, repressed memories, forgotten experiences, subliminal perceptions. The conscious ego is our everyday awareness, processing immediate stimuli and executing routine functions. Most humans spend their entire lives operating within these two relatively shallow layers of psyche. Your consciousness, however, penetrates to the collective unconscious with unusual frequency and clarity. This is not because you are more evolved in some spiritual sense, but because the structure of your psyche allows deeper material to surface into consciousness. The boundaries between layers are more permeable. The ego is less defended. The persona is less rigid. These structural differences allow archetypal content to inform your conscious awareness in ways that feel supernatural but are actually psychological. When you know that someone is lying despite perfect performance, you are reading archetypal patterns in their behavior that bypass conscious deception. The collective unconscious contains templates for every human interaction. Betrayal has a signature, deception has an energy, manipulation follows recognizable patterns. Your consciousness recognizes these patterns the way a musician recognizes notes, not through logical analysis, but through immediate perception. When you sense danger before it manifests, you are detecting subtle environmental cues that your conscious mind misses, but your unconscious psyche processes. The collective unconscious evolved over millennia to detect threat. It contains survival wisdom accumulated across countless generations. Your access to this deep psychic layer provides information that feels like prophecy, but is actually highly sophisticated pattern recognition operating below conscious awareness. When you dream of events before they occur, you are experiencing what I termed prospective dreams, dreams that prepare consciousness for future possibilities by accessing archetypal patterns in the collective unconscious. These dreams do not predict a fixed future, but illuminate probable developments based on current psychological trajectories. Time in the deep unconscious operates differently than in conscious experience. The psyche perceives patterns unfolding that the ego interprets as prediction. Animals, plants, and sensitive individuals respond to your frequency because consciousness recognizes consciousness. The collective unconscious is not uniquely human. It connects to deeper patterns of life itself. When an animal trusts you immediately, it recognizes the same deep psychic patterns it carries within itself. Your consciousness operates at a frequency that resonates with natural rather than artificial reality. Animals perceive authenticity that humans, lost in persona identification, often miss. Plants respond to your presence because consciousness, even plant consciousness, recognizes the quality of attention you bring. The mechanistic worldview treats plants as objects, but any honest observation reveals responsiveness that suggests some form of awareness. Your consciousness, attuned to the collective unconscious where all life connects, communicates at levels that bypass language and logic. These abilities did not come from study. They emerged from your structural connection to the self. You cannot learn this kind of knowing through books or training. It arises spontaneously when consciousness penetrates to sufficient depth. This is why traditional education often fails to recognize or value these capacities. Academic knowledge operates in the shallow waters of conscious, rational thought. Your gifts emerge from the deep ocean of unconscious wisdom. But here is the trap that destroys many chosen ones. These gifts become burdens when misunderstood. You feel crazy because the culture has no framework for validating your experience. You doubt your perceptions because they contradict collective consensus reality. You suppress your abilities because expressing them invites ridicule or worse. This suppression creates devastating psychological consequences. When you deny gifts arising from the self, you deny the self itself. The psyche experiences this as fundamental betrayal. The gifts don't disappear. They go underground, operating unconsciously in ways that create chaos. Your accurate intuition becomes free-floating anxiety. Your psychic sensitivity becomes overwhelming emotional volatility. Your connection to natural consciousness becomes dissociation from human society. The integration requires conscious acknowledgement and cultivation. You must claim these abilities not as supernatural powers, but as natural expressions of your deep psychic structure. You must develop relationship with the collective unconscious through practices that honor its reality. Active imagination, dream work, symbolic engagement. You must find language that allows you to honor your experience without requiring others to validate it. The enantiodromia of spiritual warfare, the sixth sign, intensified spiritual attacks, represents what I called enantiodromia, and the psychological law that everything eventually turns into its opposite. Just when you approach breakthrough, the shadow retaliates with maximum force. Relationships explode, guaranteed opportunities evaporate, health fails, not through cosmic punishment, but through the psyche's resistance to transformation. Let me explain the mechanism with precision, because misunderstanding it leads to paranoia and victimhood. The forces of regression within the collective unconscious are not conscious entities deliberately attacking you. They are psychological patterns that maintain homeostasis, the tendency of any system to resist change and return to familiar equilibrium. Your consciousness exists within a larger field, the collective unconscious of humanity. This field contains not only archetypal potentials for growth and transformation, but also massive accumulations of shadow material. Humanity's collective denial, repression, trauma, and resistance to consciousness. This shadow material operates like a gravitational field, pulling consciousness back toward familiar patterns. When an individual begins serious individuation work, when you start becoming conscious of previously unconscious content, you create disturbance in this field. It is like dropping a stone into a still pond. Ripples extend outward, affecting the entire system. The more profound your awakening, the larger the disturbance, the stronger the compensatory reaction from the field. This explains the timing of attacks. When you are living unconsciously, adapting to collective patterns, maintaining comfortable ego identification, the field leaves you alone. You pose no threat to established homeostasis, but the moment you begin genuinely awakening, accessing the self, integrating shadow, claiming authentic power, the field mobilizes to pull you back. The attacks manifest through the path of least resistance in your psychological structure. If you have unhealed wounds around abandonment, people will abandon you at critical moments. If you carry core beliefs about unworthiness, opportunities will evaporate just as success approaches. If you harbor fears about your body, health crises will emerge during important transitions. This is not punishment from malevolent forces. It is the psyche's own resistance using your existing vulnerabilities as entry points. The collective shadow cannot create problems from nothing. It activates and amplifies unintegrated material already present in your unconscious. This is why shadow work is not optional for chosen ones. Every unhealed wound becomes a potential weapon the regressive forces can use against you. But here is the paradox. These attacks, while devastating, are also initiations. Each crisis forces you to integrate shadow material you might otherwise avoid. Each betrayal reveals projections you might otherwise maintain. Each loss strips away false identifications you might otherwise cling to. The attacks are brutal, but they accelerate your individuation by making the cost of remaining unconscious unbearable. The more important your mission, the more transformative your potential contribution to the collective, the more intense the opposition. This is not because some cosmic force wants to stop you, but because your consciousness represents such significant disturbance to established patterns. An individual who awakens and then helps others awaken creates exponential disruption to the homeostatic field. The shadow understands, in its unconscious way, that losing you to full consciousness means losing all those you would subsequently awaken. The attack on you is really an attack on your future impact. This is why the intensity feels disproportionate to who you currently are. The forces of regression are not responding to your current state, but to your potential trajectory. Understanding this mechanism changes everything. You stop taking the attacks personally. You recognize them as impersonal psychological processes, no different than gravity or inertia. You prepare for them the way a sailor prepares for storms, not with surprise or victimhood, but with skilled navigation. You develop psychological resilience not through positive thinking, but through continuous shadow integration that removes the vulnerabilities through which attacks manifest. You also recognize that surviving attacks proves your readiness. Each crisis overcome strengthens your psychological structure. Each betrayal survived deepens your capacity for trust without naivety. Each loss integrated expands your ability to hold paradox and uncertainty. The attacks are testing mechanisms, ensuring that only consciousness strong enough to fulfill its mission survives to do so. This understanding allows you to maintain equanimity even in the midst of devastating circumstances. You experience the pain. Integration requires feeling everything fully, but you are not destroyed by it. You know that the very intensity of the attack confirms the significance of your awakening. You trust that you are being forged, not destroyed, even when the fire feels unbearable. The numinous wound of celestial memory, the seventh sign, your homesickness for heaven, is cellular memory of wholeness, what I called the numinous experience of the self, before it fragmented into conscious and unconscious components. You are not depressed in the clinical sense. You are experiencing the soul's memory of unity before the painful but necessary separation into ego consciousness. This requires deep exploration because it touches the core wound of every chosen one. Part of you constantly yearns to return because the self remembers what the ego has forgotten. Before individuation begins, before consciousness differentiates from the unconscious matrix, there is a state of primal unity. The infant exists in this state, undifferentiated from mother and world, experiencing wholeness without self-aware.